Hello and welcome to another YouTube exclusive of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDad FF. It is St. Patrick's Day. We're coming at you live, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. I got my green on. We're going to talk about luck, but when it comes to the rebuild process, it's not about luck. It's about the tried and true Dynasty Dad, Smash Accept rebuild process. We've evolved it from 4 or 5 years ago where I really started to play around with it to Snoog and I have perfected it into an art form where if you guys take this 6-step process within 2 years, it has over a 95% chance getting into the playoffs. It's just been tried and true. It works. It's something that, Snoog doesn't like rebuilding. He likes to win all the time. But when you're going to do it, you got to do it our way. It's going to help you out. And nobody better to chop it up with than my main man, Snoog. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, Dan. I did the same process with my $200 league just 2 years ago. Built an absolute God squad doing this. I don't rebuild anymore because I already did all the rebuilds for all my startups 2 years ago. Now it's time to win. So once you do that, you get a successful rebuild. You build that cornerstone foundational team around young wide receivers, young quarterbacks, and all that good stuff. Then you don't have to rebuild, right? Then you can push the chips and you can go buy your CMCs, your Devontae Adams, your Alvin Kamaras, and go win some real money. So I'm excited for this show. We got something cool kind of laid out for you guys. And we're going to jump into this and walk you through the processes of kind of how to rebuild and what to do with this 26 class, what that looks like. And then we'll tease the 27 class at the end.
Yeah, so a lot of you guys, we always answer the great questions as much as we can.
Bang
Tonight's show, what we're talking about is 5 super chats. Okay, 5 super chats tonight. We'll get you 1 roster evaluation from Snoog and I. You can pick either one of us, and it'll get you 1 month in the VIP Discord rebuild assistance. So if you're struggling with your team and right now you're in the middle of the pack and you're just like, I'm tired of hovering in the middle. I'm tired of being here in this spot where I'm not winning any money. This is the perfect time. Jump in, ask your questions, 5 super chats, and we will pick someone at the end. This isn't just a standard trade show. This is a little bit more, we're trying to give you guys all the content. So, we're throwing these up here. First slide we're going to talk about is during the rebuild process. Step 1, Snoog, it's easy. Honestly assess your roster. I'm looking at a couple key things, and you and I have done over 100 roster evaluations in the last month. The first thing that I'm looking at is core player age. So I'm looking at my quarterbacks. Am I going with Josh Allen and Bryce Young, or do I have Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson? My wide receivers, do I have Devontae Adams, Mike Evans? Where are my core player ages? And when I say core players, I'm primarily looking at quarterbacks and wide receivers. Second part, foundational assets. And if you guys aren't familiar with our work, our foundational assets are, you're looking at, wide receivers age 25 and under, your Malik Neighbors, your Brian Thomas Jr. We're trying to build around those guys. Running backs, right now, we only have a couple of those. Right now there's probably about 4 foundational assets. So we're always trying to help people build around the young quarterbacks, build around the young wide receivers. Tight ends, we only have 3 foundational tight ends, until this year. And then we look at overall max points for. We're like, how did you do last year? You could have missed the playoffs and had a banging roster, but where do we go from there? So Snoog, when you're first looking at these roster evals, and it's been a fun process for me. I've done so many of them. And the key thing that I'm looking at that really drives me nuts is I see teams having Devon A-Chain, Saquon Barkley, and then wide receivers that are like 35 years old and nothing there. And I'm like, this isn't prolonged sustainability. This is a win now and you're done because you have no picks. A guy today, I looked, he didn't have a 25, a 26, or a 27. And his youngest wide receiver was Chris Godwin at like 28 years old. And you're like, this is not going to keep you up. This is not how you win money. This is not how you sustainably 4 to 5 extra money like we talk about at Smash Accept all the time.
Yeah, I love this because A and B to me, for every roster evaluation I've been doing, and I've done hundreds of them in the past few months, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I actually have a general rule of thumb, depending on how deep the lineup is. But for 1 quarterback leagues, I like 3 to 4. For super flex, kind of maybe those deeper leagues, I like to look for 4 to 5 foundational assets. So I'm looking for a Rashee Rice, a Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors, a Caleb Williams, and a Josh Allen. Or I'm looking for, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Malik Neighbors, and AJ Brown. Like I'm looking for some type of substance that I know I can get 3 to 4 to 5 good more years out of those players, young studs that are tied to good offenses. I'm looking for substance here, and I'm looking for flexibility that if I have those 4 to 5 cornerstone assets, those core players that are younger, at any moment I can either put all the chips in and be a contender, or I could rip the thing down and rebuild around those 4 to 5 guys.
Right.
So that gives you that flexibility to do whatever you want and stay competitive in the league for a while. And like you said, with overall max points for, maybe you missed the playoffs by a hair from injuries and you didn't have enough depth, but you have a ton of superstars. Or maybe you came in second place and you have a really old team, but you have Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs and Devon A-Chain and you're RB heavy, but you don't have that great of wideouts. You have like a DJ Moore and a T Higgins, but you want to go get, a Nico Collins or something. Turn Saquon into Nico Collins, start flipping these running backs into wide receivers and kind of build that core foundational asset with your lineup that you can start doing whatever you want with that. And that's kind of where you really got to start, because I have teams that I've always done that with, and they've just been so good and so easy to build. And I also have teams where I've tried to go all in on winning, and I have CMC, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, Tyreek Hill, Nico Collins. Like I have so many veterans, and now I'm kind of pinned where I can't go get Brian Thomas Jr. I can't go get Malik Neighbors. So definitely matters what you do, but the way we like to build and the way we're going to tell you to build is going to be different than if I get a little crazy and I want to push all the chips in.
So I said we weren't going to answer any of these, but Matt just messaged me and he said, I got 6 firsts, 7 seconds over the next 3 drafts. What I got Caleb and Drake May as quarterbacks. What do I do? And he put this in here. I love this because he said, how much do I spend on elite wide receivers? I said, hey, we're only answering super chats. Love it. Love the new viewers. He's only 14 years old. That's the best time to get into Dynasty. That's so cool, Matt. Reach out, hit me up. I want to give you a free month of the Discord so you can see what it's like. Like you young bucks got to see what the Dynasty world is really like. But his question here is great. He says, how much should I spend on elite wide receivers like Marv and Neighbors? And when I'm looking at these rosters and I see things, I'm trying to, if you invest in your elite wide receivers, right? You invest last year in Malik Neighbors, and we were telling everybody to do that. If you can still do it at a point that's not going to break your bank, you're going to be able to build around him for the next 5 years. So we're talking about all the time where we are really trying to, tear up off of the Zay Flowers, Chris Olave, Jordan Addison. We want to get ourselves up there. So if you are sitting there with, right now, Devonta Smith in the 102, you go up there and you try to get Malik Neighbors and you make that offer to get yourself into a spot, because that gives you a foundational asset. The foundational wide receivers for me right now, we talked about it. We just did an entire show on it. But just to reiterate, it's Chase, Jefferson, Neighbors, Lamb, Amon-Ra, Puka, BTJ. Nico Collins is on the fringe because he'll be 26. We say it's 25 and under, so he's right there. JSN, London, Ladd, Marv, Garrett Wilson, Rashee Rice. That's it. Rome Odunze is close. T. Higgins
Ted
and Devonta
McMillan.
And
Ted McMillan will be one, but yeah.
Ted running the 4.48 today definitely helped, but he's right there, so he's really close. So now that we've done those things, we've gone out there and we've assessed our roster properly, and the key with that is doing it honestly. My early years of Dynasty, every year I would just trade next year's first and just be like, now I'm a contender. If it took your first to become a contender, you're not.
You're not.
I'm sorry. Like I have, out of all my teams, I only have one team that does not have a first round pick in 25 or 26. But I have 6 foundational wide receivers. I have 3 foundational quarterbacks. I have Bijan. I have Gibbs. I'm about to get, I have McBride. I have Bowers. It's the most stacked roster ever. So I don't need to worry about those kind of things. But when you are looking at your rosters, if you don't have your picks, you're in a bad spot. The next part about this roster evaluation is you figure where you're at. You're going to rebuild. You need to have your own 101. Next year, this year it's Ashton Genty, and Genty is worth every year 30 to 50% more than the 102. This year, he might be worth 70% more than the 102. Like the difference between Caleb and Marv, or Caleb and Daniels last year, was nowhere near the gap that we have between Ashton Genty and Hampton or Tet or whoever you're taking at 102. It's a big gap. Next year, if Arch Manning comes out, it's going to be another massive gap. I mean, I like some of the players here. We're going to talk about Jeremiah Love a little bit. Nick Singleton looks fantastic. There's a couple quarterbacks in this process, but Arch Manning is the guy that we are tanking for. So if you are trying to make sure you do not get that spot, and you got to look at what your settings are. Ideally, Snoog and I play in all leagues where the 101 goes to least max points for, so that way you cannot tank. It's not like you're just going out there and saying, well, I'm going to intentionally lose. When you're in these situations, you cannot. If you get your first, now you've added a spot where in this year's draft, you're trading Ashton Genty for the 106 and 2 firsts. You're going to be able to do those same things with Arch Manning next year. The key with it all, Snoog, though, is not letting people know. So many people come to me and they're like, Dad, I told my whole league that I'm rebuilding. Now I want my first back. Well, you're screwed because now they're not looking. They're not looking at that first as mid to late. They're like, oh, that's the 101. I ain't trading that.
Yeah. First thing you should do before you make a single trade, not even dropping someone to the waivers, like 0 roster moves, nothing, is go entertain getting that first back. Yeah, and see what it costs. If you don't already have it,
by 10 to 20%, right? So let's just say the guy that has it has Jordan Addison, right? And you think that would be an even trade. Throw him Jordan Addison in a late second, just so he's like, oh, cool. Yeah, this is a good deal.
Exactly.
And then you're like, okay, now I'm blowing it up. So now that's not a mid first. That's going to be the 101.
That, and you better damn well get the 101 or at least the 102. So if I'm rebuilding, it's okay to have 3 to 4 to 5 cornerstone assets, or maybe when I'm rebuilding, I like to have more liquid assets in draft capital than players itself. But I'm okay having like a Patrick Mahomes, a Brian Thomas Jr., and a Brock Bowers, and having just those 3 guys and literally selling everything else and just staying as liquid as possible with draft capital. But you never want to have like a Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, and then they go out and have a season-ending injury, and you're just losing value, right? Like, even though those type of players are pretty locked in where they're at despite an injury, but you never want to be heavily invested in players when you're hitting a rebuild. 1, because you want to get the 101. 2, you don't want to have that risk or ability of, having an injury or trying to make a bet on Rome Odunze, and then he goes out there and he sucks again, and then he loses all of his value or something like that. So you always got to be smart with that. And then 3, what I was going to say is, don't be scared to go get picks that are further out in advance. Like right here, we're talking about rebuilding for this year. So we're focused on the 26 class. Go get your 26 first back. That's fine. The 26 class ain't great. So get your 26 first back. Hopefully Arch declares. I mean, he's going to be eligible too. I think that if he goes out there and has a Heisman type year this year, he's going to go to the damn draft. I know everyone's saying he's going to go back another year. If he's the first overall pick next year and it's a bad class, he's going to go to the draft. I don't care what anybody says.
Right.
And go get 27 firsts. Don't even bother loading up on 26. Get your 26 back. Get 4 to 5 to 6 27 firsts. You're also going to be able to get seconds on top of those 27 firsts compared to a 26 first straight up, because it's further out in advance. So that's kind of the key in how I like to work rebuilds. I did that with the 24 class when there was 2023. I said both of these classes are going to be great. I'm just going to go ahead and start attacking the 2024 class and get extra picks on top. And I was literally flipping 23 firsts for 24 firsts in seconds, and it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, the tricky part is $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow, right? So a lot of people think that it's a 27 class is loaded compared to the 26. I mean, you got Jeremiah Smith in there. You're going to have some guys that are literally wide receiver, the next Jamar Chase. You know what I mean? You got 2 wide receivers in that class that are the next Malik Neighbors, the next Jamar Chase, and how you really build around a team. And, next year's class, it's a little bit different. Like my current top 12, and a lot of people are really, this is a very early part in this process, is try to look at my top 12 is I have Jeremiah Love. I have Nico at 3, Nick Singleton at 4, Lenoris Sellers at 5. There's a lot of quarterbacks I start to like. Drew Aller's in there, Antonio Williams, Mekhi Hughes, Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, Evan Stewart, Carson Beck. It's not sexy though. There's a lot of guys. I think Arch could be really good. I think Love and Singleton are going to be the prize of that running back class. You have 4 or 5 quarterbacks currently slated to go in the top 6 of your super.
It's going to be a pretty decent quarterback class, I think. It could be. It
The
could
wide
be.
receivers are down quite a bit. And out of my top 12, I only have 2 guys as wide receivers. Maybe 3 get into that area. But that's neither here nor there. What I'm saying is everybody gets rookie fever, right? So in 24, people were like, oh, well, I'll push to 25 or after the draft. But before the draft, they all wanted to draft in that class, right? Everybody wants to draft right now. And as soon as the draft's over, 25 picks go up. Next year, as soon as 25 drafts are over, 26 picks are going up. Snoog and I are telling you to get out in front and get those 27 firsts earlier, because those are the ones that you really want. Those are the ones that are going to go up. Snoog, you said something that I thought was really smart, that I had a guy message me today and he goes, I'm in a rebuild and I really need a quarterback, so I'm going out and getting Justin Fields. Here's the deal. If you're in a rebuild, you don't need anything. Like, you don't want to
Draft
win.
capital
Like,
and just draft capital.
Snoog and I always teach you want to be top 3 or bottom 3. If you're rebuild, you clearly want to be bottom 3. And we're not saying sell your team so you're the biggest laughing stock in the league. If some of you guys reach out in my DMs, I will show you what these rosters look like. Right now, we're getting some of these rosters where you're like, okay, I have Caleb Williams and Drake May. Like this guy said, he's got 6 firsts. My running backs are like Audric Estime, and you like they're just a joke. But then my wide receivers are elite. So if I intentionally, we're going to talk about this in a little bit once we are running back void, all those other different things. But let's move to the next step in the process, Snoog. This is the one that I coined 4 years ago, and people were like, I don't understand it. So let me just tell you, the key to your rebuild process at Smash Accept is your splash trade. Okay. You go out there and what you do is you make a trade where, Snoog, so many times rebuilders, and especially when we're doing these evaluations, people are like, I'm not sure if I'm ready to rebuild. I was like, okay, this is where it was. What I say is like, sleep on it, make a splash trade. So this particular trade, and I know this would not go through right now, but last year at this time, this guy wanted to compete. I wanted to rebuild. He's like, I need Jalen Hurts. I said, all right, well, I want your first and Jared Goff. And then I was like, but I'm also looking for another first because I think the gap is more than one first. So at that point, Gus Edwards was the starter. Zeke Elliott was the starter, because we're talking about post-free agency. We're talking about last year in March. So it was 2 firsts between Goff and Hurts. Both of them declared random, right? And that's the key to a rebuild, is you being able to look into someone else's roster and be like, you know what? He's an injury away from being bad. Now This is Jared Goff, 102 and 105 for Jalen Hurts. That's how you expedite the process. 1, it has insulation with the picks. 2, I actually traded Jared Goff for the 111 and 112. So this trade ended up being 102, 105, 111, 112 for Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is not worth 4 firsts. I'm sorry, especially when one of them's considered the 102. So making that splash for trade, you're no longer on the fence. Now everybody knows you're rebuilding. And when everybody knows you're rebuilding, Snoog, guess what? The trade offers start rolling in, because now people are trading you for Najee Harris. People are trading you for DK Metcalf. People are trading you for Devontae Adams, because the news happened, it broke, and here we are.
Yeah, I love it, because I actually made some splash trades in my $200 league. So my biggest buy-in, my most competitive league I'm in, I rebuilt right off the rip from the startup. I think I had like 8 2024 firsts post startup with a couple guys, like Zay Flowers, like a couple guys here and there that I had in there. But I think I got Kyler in the startup in like the 4th round. That was Kyler right off that ACL tear. I ended up turning that team. I had the 101, the 102, the 103, and then I think I had 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, like that stretch. I ended up getting Brock Bowers 108, Caleb Williams 101. I still have both of those guys. Marvin Harrison Jr. 102, Malik Neighbors 103. I flipped Marvin Harrison Jr. for AJ Brown plus, and I flipped Malik Neighbors for Jamar Chase. I think I added like a second. It might have been like 26 second in a smaller piece, but I did that during the season. The guy was rebuilding, was like, Chase is getting me too many points. I love Malik Neighbors. Give me a second plus. So I turned that into Chase. And then I ended up turning BTJ into London plus during the season. I think I got London in an early second, which is projected. I think it's 203 right now. So Don't love it, but I got that done during the season. And then I have Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon A-Chain. Like, I just started taking those picks and trading them. Like, I had so much draft capital, 26, 27, 25s, 24s. I
Right.
just loaded up, and I was just like, I'm going to build a team now. And I started building a team. And last year, I had the most points for by far. I was in first place. I had one loss. I think I was 28-1 because we did a median. And I ended up losing in the championship while putting up 220 points because the kid dropped like 260 and had such a crazy, weird lineup that went off. But my team was absolutely insane. And I built it through startup. I built it through the rebuild. And then I bought myself a team. That's what I mean by staying liquid. You have all the flexibility in the world. Everybody wants picks. Not everybody wants Devon A-Chain or Alvin Kamara or Trey McBride, right? But everybody wants a 25 first or a 26 first or a 27 first. So staying liquid like that will help you build a team out in the long run.
Yeah, and we're going to do shows on a 1-year punt, but I mean, I just did Smash Accept 17. I've made 2 trades since the draft, and I now have 15 firsts in the next 3 years. Like, I've just keep selling back because guess what? And everybody says this. And when I first did in 2023, I had rookie pick 101 through 112 after a punt. I that's why I have Thanos as my GIF, as my avatar, and it's got the Smash Accept logo on it. And people are like, what did you do with that? I turned it into the best Dynasty roster you've ever seen. Because someone's like, well, what if you don't want to draft some of those guys? Guess what? Everybody wants to draft picks. Everybody wants to get in there. They want to make their drafts. They want to get in there. Draft picks are the only thing in Dynasty that will never go down in value. They keep going up. It's such a cyclical event where they're going to go up the day after the 2024 draft is over. The 2025 picks went up. The day after the 25 draft is over, every single one of those picks is going to increase in value as you get closer to the draft. And that's what's so fun about the rebuild is you're going to start to get into a process like that. So the next part, now we've assessed our roster. You know, we've gone ahead and we have our 26 first and our 27 first because that's the easier one to get back, right? Because you're like, oh, that's 2 years out. I'll take my first back. We'll kind of play around with it. Then we go in, we make our splash trade. So now everybody in the league, Snoogs, knows that we're the team to trade. You know, we're going to start selling off every asset. So we're going to trade production. And some of the key things that I like to do is last year trading Gus Edwards in a 4th for a 3rd, or Gus Edwards and a 3rd for a 2nd, or taking Najee Harris right now and trading Najee and my 27 2nd for a 27 1st and Jalen Wright, where people are like, oh, cool, I got a starting running back. Wright could be worth more than Najee at some point this year if A-Chain were to go down. So I'm always trying to trade and get that little extra piece thrown off. So I'm trying to get the production off my team. I'm trying to remove my guys that I would normally want, you know, like Alvin Kamara, Devontae Adams, all those guys. Not right now, but after your rookie draft and when people want to start winning in September, it's time to start moving those guys. It's time to start moving guys that are not going to be necessary for your team in 2027 because a true rebuild takes 2 years. It's not a 1-year process. It's a 2-year process because most people want to just get back in there. So that's the first thing is production's getting off my team. And the key production is I'm not just trading just to trade. I'm not trading Mike Evans for Josh Downs. That does nothing for me. I'm trading Mike Evans in a 3rd for a 1st. First round picks are what you want, period. Because everybody's like, well, yeah, but I mean, you could miss on your 1st round pick. Sure. Or you could draft Brian Thomas Jr. at 109 and now he's worth 3 firsts. Or you could draft Bo Nix
Bowers,
at 112.
107.
Bowers at 1. Justin Herbert was a 110 at one point. Josh Allen was a 110. You know, like these guys, CeeDee Lamb was in that 108 to 110 range. You're going to buy assets that are going to appreciate in value. You're not trying to trade for Xavier Legette. You're not trying to trade for Josh Downs. You're not trying to trade for Jalen McMillan. You want first in a rebuild.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually want to hit on the trading production part because people think I'll go a little different from what you said because you were talking more about like turning the turd sandwiches and pairing them up with some 3rds and getting 2nds and vice versa with 2nds and 1st. That's always the best thing to do. But also what a lot of people struggle with and a lot of DMs I get is I'm rebuilding. I have Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, and Jamison Williams as my young wide receiver core. Yuck. I'm
Right.
throwing up in my mouth hearing that. You should not own a single one of those guys in a rebuild. 1, they're never going to be studs. 2, go get first for those guys. 3, they can only lose value, probably not gain much value. And 4, go get a first and a second in the future, and you'll always be able to buy those guys if you want to with that draft capital. And it's nothing against a Zay Flowers or Jordan Addison. Those are talented players. They just have such a capped ceiling with their situations. And I don't care to have a guy that can barely crack 1,000 yards and score 6 touchdowns on my roster when I don't need to win a damn thing. I want draft capital. I want to take Jimmy John's 27 first and second, where he thinks he's a top contender, and then his team
Good old
falls
Jimmy
apart.
Johns.
And his team falls apart, and it's absolute crap. And then I have the 103 in 2027, and I can go buy AJ Brown instead of Jordan Addison. And that's the philosophy that you need to get used to, is saying, I don't need you now. I can buy you later, though, with this draft pick, or I can even get you ×2 with this draft pick. So that's the philosophy that I've learned myself, and that I try to tell other people.
Yeah.
That's how you win in Dynasty.
And a lot of you guys think Snoog and I hate Zay Flowers or guys like that. We don't hate the player. He's a really good player. I mean, if you put him in you put him in the Chiefs last year, I think he would have been fantastic. But in the Ravens offense, it's just not there. You drafted him at 108 2 years ago. He's still worth 108. He just hasn't gone anywhere, and he's not going to. So if you can take that, right? If you took the Zay Flowers and you trade him for the 108 last year, you got Brian Thomas Jr. Or if you trade him for the 108 this year, you're going to get a Mika Ibuka. You're going to it's just going to be another opportunity. Everybody wants the new hot thing. Those guys are ways that you just try to move off and try to build up. The next part about that is market fluctuations. So you're trying to cash out. A lot of those situations, people looked at that trade that I had and they're like, why would that guy want Gus Edwards and Zeke? At a certain point last year, they had value. At a certain point last year, Alexander Madison in the playoffs had a little bit of value where you could have flipped him because somebody needed
Smith,
him.
Some of those guys. Jonnu Smith, you could get an early second for during that stretch last year because he was putting up 20 points per game. So it's really, really key to stay on top of that stuff during the season, especially if you're a contender that misses playoffs and it's clear as day you're going to miss playoffs and you got 2 to 3 weeks left, whether you got a trade deadline or playoffs are rolling up and you don't have a trade deadline and you have Devontae Adams and Jonnu Smith on your bench, and the first place team had Bijan Robinson, who went down with an injury and now he needs someone, or you had George Kittle who got hurt and now he needs a tight end. You have leverage. You have the ability to turn Adams and Jonnu into a first and second, or into a first. People are desperate. People want the money. And if you're a really good team, I've been in the shoes of someone with a first place team that hit injuries, scrambling for players. I need this guy, this guy, this guy. Take my first. I don't care about it now. And that's the leverage you have. And that's how you build a team, is through that type of process, taking advantage of market fluctuations.
And the next part that's part of that with the
production is my favorite one.
I want to do the invest in injuries, and I also want to tie that in with the running back void. So the investing in injuries, this is where you go out and you're like, you know what? Breece Hall tore his ACL. I'm going to get him for 70% on the dollar. You know what I mean? And that's when you approach that guy. I'm trying to think of any injuries that happened last year, but you go and
that's how I have so much Saquon Barkley. When Saquon was on the end of his Giants career, just falling apart with the injuries, I bought him everywhere. And I have 12 shares of him in 20 leagues because of that. And I just held them. I never bought him when he was an Eagle. I bought him all when he was a Giant. And then he got that Eagles contract. Everybody wanted him. And I was like, I'm keeping him.
Yeah. And you get these guys and you buy them a little bit cheaper because they're in the playoff hunt at that point. When you start to see guys go down, and once September rolls around, people want to put up points. They don't really care about the price that they're paying for things like that. They're not worried that, I might have overpaid. When Puka Nacua went down to injury, you were able to probably get him for Garrett Wilson straight up. Now he's worth considerably more, and you consider that whole process. Exactly. Rashi's still a good guy. Yeah. And we've done multiple shows where we're telling you who to buy in those situations. Yep. The next part of the roster assessment and the management is creating, if you are in where the 101 goes to the max points for, you create a running back void. So the teams that I have that are in that rebuild thing, I'm looking right now and I have My team is Caleb Williams, Drake May, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., Lad McConkey, Roma Dunze. I don't have a tight end. My RB1 is Emmanuel Wilson, and my RB2 is Sean Tucker. But Snoog, guess what picks I got coming up this year? 101,
101, 102, 103.
And then you throw those guys in there.
You're going to get Genty in 102.
Yeah.
Who's going to probably be whoever your RB2 is, whoever goes to the landing spot and gets the draft capital you like.
That's where
two top 6 dynasty running backs.
Snoog and I do this a lot is when we put our rosters together, when we're looking at them, we don't fill in the roster if we leave the spots that are open. And when you do that this time of year, you're like, okay, I don't have a running back. That's cool.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I have a rebuild where Najee Harris signed with the Chargers, I sold Najee for Brandon Ayuk. I don't need him, and Brandon Ayuk's not going to start right away. Like you're buying guys where one, you're making that void and you're investing in the injury. So it's perfect anomaly. It's the best way to do it. I love doing the rebuilds. If you guys want even deeper in on this, Snoog and I break these down farther into our Discord. Patreon.com/smash accept gets you into the Discord. We will send you guys a link. And this is where we really break it down. We start to right now where Snoog and I like to play chess when other people are playing checkers. In there, we take it to another level. We do some Bobby Fischer type stuff. The step 5 in this, and for you guys know that's a big time chess player. We're talking about in the rebuild process. There's 2 things that we've adapted the way that the terminology is this. Step 5 is now I'm going to insulate and I'm going to liquidate. So in this particular trade, we traded Josh Allen for Drake May, the 105 and a 27 first. So Josh Allen is the peak, right? Josh Allen is the number 1 asset in Dynasty. Some people would say it's Jaden Daniels, but it's Josh Allen. Drake May is someone you and I absolutely believe in. So when you insulate, you're getting a player like Drake May, who I think is going to ascend in value. Then you're adding the insulation part. You're getting the 105. So at the 105, if I'm close to contending, I'm going to draft. If not, I'm going to take the 105. I'm going to trade it for a 27 first and the 112. Now all of a sudden I'm getting Drake May, the 112, and 227 firsts. Mm-hmm. Cascading trades and insulating and liquidating. So liquidating is players are going to go up, rise and fall in value. I'm trying to minimize risk, maximize return. Drake May is going to go up, right? But I'm not investing in Michael. This isn't a Michael Penix Jr. trade. I'm buying guys I believe in, and the rest of it is liquid. I want picks that are going to go up in value.
I love that you said this because I literally helped someone today on a roster review. They had a very similar situation where they had a really good team, but they had 3 big holes in their lineup, but everything else was flawless. I said, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to take CeeDee Lamb and Josh Allen, 2 of our cornerstone assets, tier back, get 2 more cornerstone assets, and 3 firsts on top. We flipped CeeDee Lamb for Marv in a first. I think it was a 27 first in Marvin Harrison Jr. Then we flipped Josh Allen for Caleb Williams and 2 random, a 26 and a 27 first. And I was like, now we have 2 cornerstone assets that we're bringing back to the lineup. Now we have 3 firsts for the future on top of our own firsts that we have. So now we have 5 future firsts. We can do whatever the hell we want with them. We can buy players. We can do whatever we want. But we're not going to do anything until the season because we're going to see how our team works out. We're going to see what happens. We're going to see if maybe our team starts off hot. And now it's like, okay, now we need some cheap guys. Maybe we can turn a first into Kamara and CMC or a first into Kamara and Mixon. Something like that just to get 2 immediate plug-and-play elite starters and still keep 5 firsts, 4 firsts for the future. So there's so many ways you could do it, but insulating and liquidating is literally how you win in Dynasty. And it's like a repeated process. You don't have to not like – I love Josh Allen. He's one of my favorite players ever to watch. Incredible football player. But if I need to sell him, I'm selling him. I'm not getting attached to owning him in Dynasty. And that's the thing people struggle with. I told someone in the Discord, like, we got to move off Jaden Daniels. He's like, I love Jaden Daniels, though. I'm a Commanders fan. I don't want to trade him. I'm like, do you want to win money and have a good Dynasty league? Or do you want to have Jaden Daniels and then start Najee Harris and Gus Edwards? Like, you gotta root for your guys, but also build your teams to win. And so we went ahead and we turned him into Drake May and 2 firsts. So these are the type of things that we're constantly trying to do in the Discord to help you guys out.
What's super fun about that is once you've liquidated enough, you have so much. It's like You know, when guys like Jay-Z have so much money, it's like up yours money. You know, like I can't say what it actually is, but you get so many pieces,
I'll
right?
say it.
So shout out to, you know, Connor Simpson. He was like, we did a roster evaluation. We started talking about things, and I was like, we just have too much here. Let's start consolidating. We traded Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, Jaden Reed for Jaden Daniels in the 105. You know, because he just had so much capital. We went out there, we upgraded. That's the fun part of this is my rebuilds. They all have Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen now because I've gone in and Lamar Jackson, and they're my most owned quarterbacks because I've rebuilt. And now all of a sudden I was like, I got too much money. Let's go ahead and buy the best players in the game. You know, and like the more you invest it, like in Smash 17 with 15 first round picks, at certain point, I already have 8 quality starters. You gave me 15 more firsts.
Yep.
Now we're like, that's 23 guys. I got to start consolidating. So love that. Insulate. So you're making sure you're hedging your bets, and then liquidate. So we're making sure we get as many assets as possible. And then step 6. And this is where step 1 through 5, I consider myself the complete expert on that. Like I when it comes to trading, when it comes to knowing how to insulate, who to pick out, when it comes to this next step, this is where I turn it. You know, Snoog is one of the best in the business, if not the best, where we talk about rookie draft preparation. You know, Snoog, that was no slight on your trading ability too. You're good with that. But when you blend the two is why things are successful is you look at your rookie draft prep, you do your research, right?
Yep.
Snoog, how many shares did you have of Quentin Johnston? How many shares did you have of, you know, Michael Penix Jr., Xavier Legette, Keon Coleman? It's 1 or 0 across like 30 leagues, you know?
Yep.
So we're investing in the right players. The best way we're doing that is Snoog and I operate in tiers. We're always trying to get into a tier, find out where the tier breaks are. So if we knew last year that the tier break was after Brian Thomas Jr., then we're trying to trade up to get Brian Thomas Jr. If we know this year there's a tier break at 205, we're trying to move from 212 to 205 now. The best way to get all that kind of information is to join the Discord. Snoog has put together a rookie guide in there that is top notch. It is an absolute must get. It will put you over the top. My rankings are in there. Snoog's rankings are in there. The Discord, we are doing mock drafts. You know, Scarface put a comment in here about he loves this kind of show. It's his favorite every year. My Smash Leg 10 League is the nice from this process. He sets that up every Wednesday, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. We do a trade show on Tuesdays. We do a mock show on Wednesdays to put you in position so you know where guys are going, so you can avoid getting those guys that you don't want. And you can get a guy like in this picture here who Snoog and I had as a top 5 running back in this class, and Nick Singleton.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the move into tiers because last year, even though I ended up being wrong, but I was really highlighting like, okay, you're hitting Caleb, Marv, Neighbors, like 3 elite prospects that I viewed as damn near like can't miss guys, and you're taking anyone who you're taking at the 104, trade that 104, which was Jaden Daniels in like every single league. So it happened to be that I was like, we're gonna avoid Jaden Daniels. We're gonna move back to 106, 107, 108, and get an extra first on top, or get whatever you need on top, which a lot of people were doing. Getting Brock Bowers, getting these Drake Mays and stuff on top. It just so happened that Jaden Daniels actually ended up being phenomenal, that even if you did get Brock Bowers in a first, you still probably lost the trade, even though it feels good to get a player like that. But it was the right process. It might have helped you guys. Maybe you ended up getting Bowers in an early first this year or something, or May in an early first, but it's that process. And the more times than not, that's going to end up being the right thing, because we were saying it, Dad, in 2023 together, instead of taking Anthony Richardson 102 or any of those guys, go get Gibbs, go get Stroud, go get JSN, and take those guys 104 through 106. And I did that in every single league. And that's why I have so much Jameer Gibbs, and I had a lot of CJ Stroud, because I was doing that. Because I was like, Stroud's better than Bryce Young. I'm going to move back. I'm not taking Bryce Young there. And it worked. So that's how you got to do it. And it didn't work last year, but it worked the year before, and it worked in 2022 as well, when I was saying, get Garrett Wilson. Everyone was reaching on London and Breece Hall and taking those guys. And I was like, Garrett Wilson's better. I'll take him 103, 104 all day long. And I was getting an early second on top to move back. So
And that's always the process when you're rebuilding. Is I was telling everybody to trade Caleb for Jaden plus a first. Now it's the other way around, and we were saying, if you don't like Daniels or Caleb, trade back to 5 or 6 and get May plus a first. And eventually it catches up when you're insulating, because you're getting yourself more opportunities, more chances to go ahead and hit those next big guys, because that's what you're going to do there. So, rookie draft prep is certainly important. Just to recap from the beginning here, we're talking about step 1. We're going out there and we're honestly assessing our rosters. If you do not trust yourself with that, I'm at DynastyDad FF on Twitter. He's at FFSnoog. Some of you guys have been reaching out just in the comment section and setting things up through email. We will help you out. The second step then is we're going out there, we're getting our 26 first. If we already have that, we're moving on to step 3. Step 3 is making that splash trade. We're no longer on the fence, baby. We are all in on this rebuild. We are putting ourselves into that spot where we are going to on a full-on, tank mode. Next step, roster management. This is where it's fun. This is if you are a lazy dynasty owner, you don't want to rebuild. But if you are an active dynasty owner, this is where it's super fun to just all of a sudden Alexander Madison gets a start. You flip him in a 4th for a 3rd. And then the next time somebody else gets a start who's a random running back, you look at everybody's roster, right? You're like, who can I get off my team, as opposed to who can I put on my team? And it's a fun part of the process. Step 5, insulate, liquidate. We are giving you guys shows. We just did a quarterback show. We're telling you who to buy. It's your Bryce Young, JJ McCarthy, Drake May, Caleb Williams. Their values have gone up since we did that, but that's how we do it. We did locks last year. We were talking about buying those guys. It's all about the right timing. And then the last step into step 5 is step 6. It's your rookie draft prep, and then once you guys are done with that, you guys are ready to go. You're going to have smash level rosters. You're going to go out there and you're going to dominate. The unfortunate part when we do the roster reviews is Snoog and I are brutally honest. We're not here to sugarcoat it. We're not here to make you feel good. We're going to say, you know what? We're going to grade every single part of your roster. I've given out Fs today. I was like, this quarterback room that's an F. And they're like, Dad, that's kind of harsh. And I'm like, so if you go to your financial advisor and you say, hey, what do you think of this? Do you want him to tell you the truth, or do you want him to be like, no, you're going to be good, you're going to retire? In fantasy football, you're playing to win money. If you want to invest that money to win money, that's the best way to do it. Join the Smash Accept Discord today. We will help you out with your rebuild. So, Snoog, anything else before we close it out?
Nah, you crushed it. You're making me want to go rebuild a roster.
Dude,
right
now. I'm pumped.
Smash. Is it Smash 18? I might have to do that in the startup. Yeah. I might have to just beat you to it and hit the 1-year punt. 1-year punts are my favorite. So we got to do a show on that maybe this week or next week on a 1-year punt. Maybe we'll do a layout like this for you guys. But this was fun. This was really cool. The 6-step process is the smash process. It's the way to do it. Scarface in the chat said he did this. I've done it. Dad's done it. We've all done it. We can improve. Definitely the way to do it. Build around elite cornerstone wide receivers and quarterbacks. Worry about everything else later, and you're ready to smash.
Hey, thanks again for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process. Let's rebuild.